She slapped a yellow notice on my porch post at 6:14 a.m. Unauthorized structure, $750 fine, 10 days to comply. The farmhouse was 100 years old, and I bought it precisely because it sat outside their HOA boundary. 10 days later, she'd learn how lines on a map actually work. Welcome to HOA Karma. I'm Mark Ellison, civil engineer out of Denton County, Texas. The kind of guy who reads plats for fun and still keeps his grandfather's drafting pen. If you like stories where paperwork beats bullies, you're in the right place. Hit subscribe if you're over 50 and tired of being pushed around by boards with clipboards. Where are you watching from, anyway? The morning she posted that citation, I was sanding porch rails I'd milled myself from reclaimed pine. My dog Baxter barked once, low, when her SUV stopped. She didn't look at me, just taped the paper and snapped a photo like it was a wildlife sighting. The emblem on her jacket read Oak Hollow HOA Compliance. Oak Hollow stopped 2 parcels east. My deed said unincorporated county. I knew, because I'd verified it line by line before closing. Loss give you patience. Mine came when my dad's old ranch house got condemned after a zoning mistake no one fought. He died thinking he'd failed us. I promised myself I'd never lose another home to bureaucratic bluffing. So when this woman, her nameplate later read Karen M. Blake President, told me I owed fees to an HOA I'd never joined, the wound reopened like cedar sap. She returned that afternoon with a man holding a measuring wheel. Fence encroaches 3 feet into the easement, she declared. I said, you don't have jurisdiction here. Her smile was tight. Every property accessing Oak Hollow Road is under our governance. Check your covenants. I did, I replied. Section 1.02, boundary ends at parcel 147B. This will go easier if you cooperate, she said, and left a second notice. Pending lien review. That night, coffee brewed and angry, I spread maps across the kitchen table. Parcel 147C, mine, was recorded in 1923, predating Oak Hollow's formation by 74 years. The HOA had annexed newer tracts, but never filed an amended declaration. It wasn't ignorance. It was ambition. At work the next day, my friend and county surveyor Leo caught me muttering over GIS layers. They trying to rope you in? He asked, half grinning. Leo was the sort who carried a thermos big enough for a family. Yeah, they think the road give them control. Roads county maintained, he said. Public right-of-way, not private drive. Get the maintenance logs. That's your proof. Knowledge nugget number 1. In Texas, if a road is accepted into county maintenance records, adjacent lots remain public-facing. Private associations can impose access fees or architectural control without recorded annexation and owner consent. That evening I walked the boundary with a flashlight, snapping time-stamped photos of the survey stakes. Gravel crunched under my boots, and the air smelled like coal dust and creosote. Baxter's collar jingled beside me. Evidence first, anger later. That was Dad's rule. 2 days later, a certified letter arrived. Notice of outstanding violation, non-conforming exterior color, fine, $1,250. They'd mailed it to Oak Hollow Lot 203. My parcel wasn't even numbered that way. It was intimidation via stationery. By Friday, I drafted my reply, 3 pages, double-spaced, citations included. I attached deed copies, parcel map, and the county's road maintenance acceptance from 1984. I mailed it certified and scanned it for my records. I also dropped an extra copy at their clubhouse. Karen intercepted me at the door. You're making this harder than it has to be, she said. Only if facts scare you, I answered. She leaned close enough that I could smell her perfume, something sharp and citrusy. Facts won't save you when the board votes. Votes don't change boundaries, I said, and walked out heart-hammering. That night, on the farmhouse light, I sorted the file into a blue binder labeled Oak Hollow Dispute 2025. I didn't know yet that this binder would end up on a podium under rain-beaded microphones months later. For now, it was just me, a scanner, and a promise not to repeat my father's silence. I stared at the window reflection, my face half-lit, tired. Maybe this wasn't just about a farmhouse. Maybe it was about drawing a line Nobody could redraw without consent. Baxter thumped his tail against the floorboards. Outside, the porch notice fluttered in the wind like a challenge flag. I took it down, folded it once, and slid it into a plastic sleeve marked Exhibit A. The board meeting agenda, online listed annexation, compliance enforcement, discussion. Date, June 18, 2025. I circled it. 10 days. Exactly the same countdown she'd given me on that first notice. Only this time, I'd be the one delivering paperwork they hadn't read. I exhaled, slow, as the printer hummed behind me. 10 days, Dad. I whispered, let's see if they can read maps. By day 7, I'd learned every contour of that boundary line like a scar. Leo helped me pull the official parcel shape files from the county archive. He even highlighted the non-annexed designation in orange. If they try to claim jurisdiction, he said, tapping the printout, this line saves you. I slipped the page into the binder's front pocket, like armor. 3 days later, Oak Hollow's compliance van parked across my driveway again. Karen stepped out with a clipboard and 2 board members, the treasurer, Greg, a tall man with suspenders, and some new recruit tried to look important. Karen called out, we've logged another non-conforming element. The mailbox, wrong height. I measured myself. 44 inches on the nose. The USPS regulation minimum was 42. I told her that. She sniffed. Our aesthetic standard is 42 exactly. Uniformity matters. Uniformity. That word grated. It's how they disguise control as order. When she left, I sat on the porch steps, rubbing the ridge of my jaw. Across the road, my neighbor Trudy, retired teacher, sweet but sharp, called over, they're picking the wrong one to tangle with. I laughed. Feels like they're picking everyone one at a time. She nodded. They fined me for a wind chime once. Said it was reflective hazard. I kept it anyway. That night, I started what I called the dig. I filed public records requests, board minutes, annexation filings, insurance certificates, anything referencing parcel 147C. The clerk at the county office, an old friend named Rosa, knew me from drainage projects. She leaned over the counter, whispering, you didn't hear it from me, but they never recorded an amended plat after 2004. If they're claiming you, they're bluffing. I thanked her with a box of collages the next morning. Bureaucracies run on quiet kindness. Karen's tone hardened in her next email. Failure to comply may result in lien placement and property access restrictions. I read it twice, then forwarded it to my attorney, Sheila Price, a municipal law specialist known for ink-stained cuffs and a voice like gravel. She called within the hour. She can't record a lien without a legal interest in your parcel, Sheila said. We'll respond with a cease and desist, citing lack of privity. Also, get photos of every notice they've posted. Time-stamped them. I already had them in chronological order, each labeled, each laminated. 2 days later, I delivered Sheila's letter to the HOA office myself. Karen met me at the glass door, crossing her arms. Lawyer now, huh? She said, just making sure we all follow the same rules. Her smile twitched. You'll regret this. Maybe, I said, but I'll regret silence more. The following week, I found my trash cans tag in proper placement. 6:02 a.m. They were exactly where the city required. 3 feet from the curb. Someone was watching. Second engagement time. For those of you who fought HOAs before, tell me, are you firmly anti-HOA, or do you believe some still serve a purpose? If you've dealt with one, share your best tip to help others stand up. And if an HOA lurker's reading this, drop your defense in the comments. We'll see if sunlight scares it. At this point, the harassment felt almost coordinated. A wellness check from the sheriff's office after an anonymous call claiming loud arguments. A code inspection citing overgrown vegetation. Grass measured at 3.5 inches. A smear post on the neighborhood forum calling me hostile to community standards. Each incident went into binder. Date, time, photo, outcome. I numbered the tabs. Notices 1 to 6. Email 7 to 12. Public records 13 to 19. Documentation wasn't just protection. It was my counterattack. Late one night, Trudy brought over a peach pie and whispered, They're scared of losing face. Karen's building a new gatehouse project. Needs every parcel under HOA dues to justify the budget. That was my first clue to the deeper motive. Money masked as order. So I checked county bonds and permits. Sure enough, Oak Hollow's new gatehouse project listed a funding assumption. Projected assessment revenue increased from annexation parcels 147A through 147D. I stared at that line, heartbeat slowing. They'd planned my inclusion before I even bought the place. The next morning, I drove to City Hall and met with Dale, the building inspector, a wiry man with a permanent coffee stain on his sleeve. They can't collect assessments outside recorded boundaries, he confirmed. If they try, that's fraud. Would you certify that in writing? He shrugged. Send me an email. I'll reply officially. I did, and by noon his response was printed, signed, and slipped into Evidence Tab 20. Knowledge nugget number 2. An HOA can't expand authority through custom or assumption. It requires a properly recorded amendment and majority consent of affected owners. Anything else is unenforceable and possibly criminal if used for financial gain. By the weekend, my strategy was forming. Not to sue, not yet, but to let them hang themselves with their own filings. Sheila called it passive compliance. You stay quiet. Let them issue one more false lien threat. That's your trigger for state action. Saturday afternoon, as the sun burned low, I saw Karen photographing my property again. She flinched when she noticed me, then smiled tight. Just ensuring compliance, she said. Of what exactly? Community integrity. I tilted my head. Then you might want to check your own bylaws. Her SUV rolled away, gravel spitting from the tires. I watched it disappear down the public road she claimed to own. The binder felt heavy under my arm. It wasn't paranoia anymore. It was preparation. What do you think, though? Should an HOA have authority over property that never opted in just because it shares a road? Where's the boundary between community and coercion? Drop your thoughts, or at least like the video, so we can test how far governance goes before it becomes trespass. Karen's email came Monday morning at 9:02 a.m. sharp. Subject line: final notice before escalation. She CC'd her treasurer, her attorney, and, interestingly, the HOA's insurer. Failure to comply, she wrote, will result in lien recording and possible restricted access through Oak Hollow gates effective June 18, 2025. I almost laughed. There were no gates on my road, just a cattle guard and county pavement. Still, she copied the right people. That meant she was serious. Sheila reviewed it and said, Good. This is their unforced error. Now we let them escalate. What if they actually try to lock the road? I asked. Then we involve the county sheriff. It's public access. That's your neutral authority. Leo dropped by that evening, hands still dusty from field work. Got something for you, he said, sliding a roll map across my porch table. Pulled this from the 1984 maintenance log archives. I unrolled it, breath-catching. The county engineer's signature in blue ink, page number stamp number 221. The map explicitly labeled Oak Hollow Road as county-maintained right-of-way, 60-foot easement. No ambiguity. That was the first domino. Trudy came over with her thermos of sweet tea and squinted at the map. So they've been bluffing all along? Looks like it, I said, but I want to prove intent. How? By seeing where the money flows. Gatehouse bonds depend on annexation revenue. If they budgeted for me before I joined, that's fraud. She nodded slowly. You're going to need help digging through their finances. That's when she called her nephew, Marcus, a quiet data analyst with a laptop covered in stickers that said things like code control. Marcus arrived 2 nights later. I'll pull their filings with the state HOA registry, he said, typing fast. Public records show their annual dues income jump 11% last year, right before they announced a new gatehouse. But the parcel list doesn't match those numbers. Looks like they're inflating projected membership. He turned the screen toward me, a spreadsheet of line items, red highlighted anomalies. My chest tightened with adrenaline. Can you print that? Already did, he said, feeding paper into the printer. Knowledge nugget number 3. Most states require HOAs to maintain public financial transparency under annual corporate filings. Inflating dues or annexation revenue in those filings can constitute fraud or false representation under state nonprofit statutes. It was nearly midnight when Marcus left, and I sat in the kitchen staring at the binder. Each tab was a fuse waiting for a match. I could feel my father's old bitterness stir in my chest, the helplessness of losing something honest to a machine of rules. Only this time, I had blueprints instead of grief. 3 days before the meeting, Karen posted a new notice. Unauthorized structure, porch extension noncompliance, $500 fine. She'd walked onto my property to measure. I had security footage, compliant with Texas's one-party consent law, showing her stepping over the boundary post. Sheila smiled when she saw it. That's trespass. Quietly log it. Don't confront her yet. The footage became visual beat number 1 in my mind, the moment her authority crossed a literal line. By Thursday, the HOA smear campaign had shifted online. A post on Nextdoor accused me of harboring unlicensed construction workers and refusing community cooperation. Trudy screenshot it before it was deleted. I added it to tab 27, defamation materials. That evening, Marcus texted, "Got something you'll like." HOA forgot to redact account numbers in their insurance statement. The document showed Oak Hollow's liability insurer, Pine Tree Mutual, with a clause. Coverage excludes properties outside recorded HOA boundaries. Meaning, if they trespassed or misapplied liens outside the boundary, the insurer wouldn't back them. That was leverage, quiet, potent, and entirely lawful. "What's your move?" Marcus asked when we met the next morning. "I'm not swinging yet," I said. "They'll announce annexation plans at the June 18th meeting. When they do, they'll commit on record. And then we pull the rug with documents they've already signed." Friday evening, I visited the farmhouse porch, the one they'd labeled unauthorized. Baxter lay at my feet, wind lifting his fur. Across the fields, fireflies blinked above the grass. The air smelled of earth and pine tar. I thought of Dad, of how he'd shake his head and say, "Don't fight angry, fight accurate." As the sun dipped behind the tree line, I rehearsed what I'd say at that meeting. Calm, factual, surgical. No theatrics, just paper and truth. Before heading inside, I noticed another SUV slowing near the driveway. Karen again. She lingered, window down, pretending to check her phone. I raised a hand in a friendly wave. Not mockery, just acknowledgement. She hesitated, then drove off. That told me I'd gotten under her skin. And maybe under their foundation. But let's be honest. Where's the line between enforcing standards and flat-out harassment? Should HOA boards have immunity when they weaponize bylaws against owners they don't control? Drop your answer. I want to know if I'm overreacting or just the first one to push back. The night before the meeting, Sheila called. "Everything ready?" Binders packed, maps printed, emails tabbed, video queued. I said, "Pacing by the window." "Good. Stay calm tomorrow. Let them speak first. Never interrupt. When they claim jurisdiction, that's your cue." Her voice was steady, like gravel underfoot. I trusted her more than I trusted my own pulse. June 18th came humid and electric. Thunderhead stacked over Oak Hollow's clubhouse as I parked out front. I counted 12 vehicles, board members, residents, and a patrol car idling near the curb. The officer inside sipped coffee, watching the sky. Inside, the air was too cold, the fluorescent lights humming. Karen stood at the podium, flanked by Greg and the secretary. "Next order of business," she said into the mic. "Annexation ratification. Parcels 147, A through 147D. Her smile was crisp. "We have confirmed community consent." I raised my hand. "Excuse me. There's been no consent from 147C. Karen didn't look at me. "You're out of order, Mr. Ellison. Only members may address the board." "That's my point," I said evenly. "I'm not a member." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Trudy sat near the back, hands folded tight. Karen pressed on. "The board moves to approve annexation effective immediately." Sheila, sitting 2 rows behind me, leaned forward. "Wait," she called out, voice like a gavel. You cannot annex without recorded owner consent or county registration. Karen exhaled dramatically. Ms. Price, we've already filed preliminary intent. Intent isn't recordation, Sheila replied. And filing intent on parcels without jurisdiction is fraud under Texas Property Code Section 209.006. Karen's jaw flexed. We'll handle this in executive session. Actually, I said, rising, you'll handle it in public, since you've announced it here. I pulled the binder from my bag, the spine creaking open. The microphone squealed as I stepped forward. For the record, I said, Parcel 147C, my farmhouse, was recorded in 1923, prior to Oak Hollow's establishment. It's county land, confirmed public access via right-of-way number 221, filed 1984. I slid the map across the podium. And here's your insurance policy, explicitly excluding non-member parcels. If you record a lien, your coverage voids. Gasps rippled through the room. Greg's face paled. Karen blinked twice, then forced a smile. This meeting is adjourned. The officer by the door cleared his throat. Ma'am, he said, stepping forward, public meeting rules require adjournment by motion, not unilateral. Karen froze, lips pressed tight. That was neutral authority, standing in county uniform, coffee cup in hand. Knowledge nugget number 4. Under Texas open meeting standards for incorporated associations, once a public session begins, it cannot be adjourned without recorded vote or motion. Unilateral dismissal is voidable and exposes the board to challenge. I glanced at Sheila. She nodded once. Motion denied. I said calmly, because you don't have jurisdiction here to begin with. I lifted the security footage still of Karen crossing my fence line and set it beside the binder. For the record, that's trespass under Penal Code Section 30.05. Date stamped, location verified. Karen's face flushed red. You think you can intimidate us with paperwork? No, I said, lower my voice. Just the law. The officer leaned on the podium. Ma'am, he said to her, if this footage is accurate, I'd advise you not to enter that property again until this is cleared up. The meeting dissolved into whispers. Greg tugged at his collar, muttering something about insurance exposure. The secretary scribbled frantically in the minutes. Karen tried to recover. This is a misunderstanding. Our intent was... Intent doesn't erase trespass, I interrupted, or fraudulent filings. Sheila stood, voice even. We'll be forwarding these documents to the county attorney's office tomorrow, and to Pine Tree Mutual, since their policy is implicated. I closed the binder gently and said, 10 days ago, you gave me a countdown. Now it's yours. That line hung in the air like thunder. I didn't need to shout. The silence was enough. Outside, rain started to fall. Slow, deliberate drops on asphalt. The officer tipped his hat as I passed. You handled that clean, he said. Facts don't shout, I answered. They just wait. Trudy caught up to me at my truck. That was something, Mark, she said, voice trembling between pride and fear. Not over yet, I replied. They'll hit back before they fold. Then we'll document that too, she said. Driving home through the storm, wipers clicking, I thought about what reform could look like once the dust settled. Term limits, open books, community instead of control. But first, the reckoning had to run its course. Do you think homeowners should record every HOA meeting they attend, or does that cross into privacy? Where's the balance between accountability and intrusion? Comment below. I'm genuinely curious what most folks believe. The next 72 hours were chaos in slow motion. Oak Hollow's Facebook page turned into a rumor mill. Karen posted that a resident has fabricated documents to evade community standards, and by noon half the neighborhood was debating my sanity. Trudy texted, don't feed them, so I didn't. Instead, I kept printing, tabbing, dating, the steady rhythm of preparation. Then the citations resumed. Monday, trash bin left visible, $150. Tuesday, exterior lighting non-compliant, $200. Wednesday morning, I opened a mailbox to find a red stamped envelope marked final demand, $2,100. My pulse spiked. but Sheila's voice echoed in my head. Stay calm, collect and copy. That night, as thunder cracked over the fields, I built what I called a retaliation log. Time-stamped photos of every notice, each one beside a newspaper to prove the date. Baxter paced the porch, hackles twitching at every car that slowed near the gate. When the headlights lingered too long, I felt the weight of my father's lesson again. Fear feeds control if you let it. The lowest point came Thursday evening. I came home from work to find a county cruiser parked outside the fence. The deputy stepped out, hat tilted against the drizzle. Got a call from the HOA. He said, they reported possible illegal construction. I led him around the porch, pointing to the approved permit tags. He nodded, sheepish. Sorry, sir. Looks fine to me. Not your fault, I said. Just do me a favor. Note who called. He glanced at his tablet. President Blake. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with Trudy and Marcus. The rain beat the tin roof like static. They're trying to push you into a mistake, Trudy said. Marcus sipped coffee. You've got enough evidence to bury them. But what's the play? Timing, I answered. Let them go one step too far. Friday they did. Karen filed a lien intent with the county clerk on the wrong parcel number. The filing fee receipt was public within an hour, and Sheila texted me the screenshot. Got them. That's fraudulent recordation. Knowledge nugget number 5. Filing a lien without a valid contractual or statutory basis constitutes a fraudulent claim against real property under Texas Civil Practice Section 12.002. Each act carries up to $10,000 in civil penalties plus attorney's fees. By Saturday, Sheila had drafted the complaint. Marcus was already formatting the evidence index. I signed the verification, the pen scratching over legal paper like a fuse burning down. We filed electronically that night. Sunday morning dawned clear for the first time in weeks. The air smelled of wet cedar and diesel. I took the binder onto the porch, flipped to the last tab, fraudulent filing evidence, and felt something inside settle. Fear didn't vanish. It just turned into direction. Still, the emotional toll was catching up. My sister called from Oklahoma. Mark, this is eating you alive, she said. Why not just sell and move? Because that's what they count on, I replied. If I move, they win the next road over too. She paused. Dad would be proud. That one landed. Monday morning. Pine Tree Mutual called Sheila requesting a copy of my complaint. She smiled when she told me. Their underwriter's nervous. If Oak Hollow acted outside coverage, the insurer's pulling defense funding. That meant money or the lack of it would start to collapse. But before that, I wanted transparency. So I drafted a letter to every homeowner in Oak Hollow, stapled with a copy of the 1984 county map and the fraudulent lien screenshot. I hand-delivered half before sunset, each envelope slipping quietly into a mailbox slot. Some neighbors avoided eye contact. Others whispered, "Good luck." By nightfall, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages from residents thanking me, a few terrified I'd bring down their property values. I answered them all calmly, explaining that fairness protects value better than fear ever could. Marcus grinned over the glow of his laptop. You realize you're trending locally? Someone posted a meeting clip on TikTok. 100,000 views. Let them watch, I said. Maybe they'll learn what due process looks like. Still, I couldn't shake the unease. Around 11 p.m., a motion light flicked on by the barn. I stepped outside, flashlight in hand. Footprints in the mud. Size 7 maybe, leading from the fence to the driveway. No damage, just presence. I filed it under intimidation attempt and locked the gate. Driving to work the next morning, I asked myself the question that I'll ask you now. What punishment fits when an HOA crosses from governance into harassment, fines, removal, or full civil liability? Because by then, I knew which route I was taking. By midweek, the silence from Oak Hollow was louder than their threats had ever been. No new notices. No cars idling by the fence. It was a quiet of regrouping. The pause before counterattack. Then Thursday morning, a courier dropped off an envelope with embossed lettering. Oak Hollow Community Association Legal Department. Inside was a single-page settlement offer. Karen wanted me to withdraw my complaint in exchange for nullifying all outstanding fines. I almost laughed. Sheila read it twice and said, "Classic bluff. If they thought they were right, they'd never offer peace." "So we wait." I asked. "We watch," she corrected. "They'll make one last move before their insurer pulls out." And she was right. Friday afternoon, 2:37 p.m., Karen called my office line. First direct call since this all started. I hit record. Texas being one-party consent. "You've created a circus," she said, voice shaking between fury and exhaustion. "I've created accountability." I replied, "You think the county cares about one farmhouse?" "I think the county cares about false filings and insurance fraud." There was silence, then a brittle laugh. "You don't understand how this works." "I do," I said softly. "That's the problem." After the call, I saved a recording, time-stamped, backed it up twice. That file would stay sealed until the right moment. By Saturday, Sheila confirmed what we'd hoped. Pine Tree Mutual had suspended Oak Hollow's coverage pending investigation. No defense, no budget for attorneys. The board was cornered, and they didn't even know the half of it yet. That evening, I met Leo at the diner off Highway 380. He slid a brown envelope across the table. "Got your leverage," he said. Inside was a certified copy of an easement assignment. The county's rights over Oak Hollow's stormwater retention pond, recorded in 1999 and still active. The HOA forgot to renew their maintenance permit, Leo said. Technically, whoever holds this assignment controls access for inspection and upkeep. My mind clicked through possibilities. Meaning I could file a subassignment to my LLC and legally enter HOA property for inspection? Exactly, he said, as long as you're certified under state compliance. I am. That was it. Reversal number one. I filed the subassignment through my small consulting firm, Ellison Civil Works LLC, Monday morning. By law, I now held authority to inspect Oak Hollow's retention systems for compliance, the same systems failing state runoff limits. I didn't announce it. I just waited. Visual beat number one replayed in my head. Karen stepping over my fence, thinking she owned the ground she stood on. Now, I owned the authority she'd ignored. Marcus helped me draft the inspection notice. Plain language, lawful tone, stamped and delivered via certified mail. Scheduled compliance review. Oak Hollow Retention Facility, July 3rd, 2025. When the HOA board received it, panic followed. Greg emailed at 6:11 p.m. "This is highly irregular. You lack jurisdiction." I didn't reply. The next morning, Karen called Sheila, demanding to know if I was bluffing. Sheila simply said, "You can confirm with the county records." That night, Trudy brought over lemonade and asked, "You're not actually going to inspect, are you?" "Oh, I am," I said, "with a sheriff escort." She whistled. "That's bold." "It's compliance," I said. "They taught me how to enforce rules." The inspection day came hot and windless. The sheriff met me at the cul-de-sac gate, clipboard in hand. "You got the paperwork?" he asked. I handed over the subassignment and county acknowledgement. He skimmed it, nodded. "Looks clean. Let's walk." Karen stood at the pond gate, arms crossed. "You can't be here." The sheriff raised a brow. "Ma'am, his authorization's valid. He's conducting a lawful inspection." Her face fell, that single moment of realization where power flips. I recorded turbidity readings. Photographed broken drainage grates, logged silt depth in feet. The pond hadn't been maintained in years. Violations stacked up like cards in my hand. When we finished, the sheriff signed my inspection sheet as witness. That night, I faxed the report to the county environmental office and to Pine Tree Mutual's claims department. Monday morning, Karen's lawyer called Sheila. The HOA wanted an emergency meeting to clarify boundaries and discuss potential settlement. Sheila just smiled. They're ready to deal. I didn't celebrate. Not yet. I sat on the porch, listening to cicadas grind against the dusk, binder open to the last filled tab. For months, their letters had dictated my days. Now my paperwork dictated theirs. Still, I knew a storm was brewing. Not the summer kind, but the administrative one that rips through egos and budgets alike. And once it broke, there'd be no going back to quiet fences and polite nods. So tell me, how would you handle it? Would you use leverage like this quietly, or push for a public reckoning to make an example? I'm curious. Comment what you'd do if you had the file box and the law on your side. The emergency meeting took place on July 10th, 1 week after the inspection report went public through the county's environmental portal. The post listed 32 code violations under Oak Hollow HOA's name: sediment overflow, faulty culverts, unlicensed maintenance. Local news picked it up within 48 hours. By the time I parked outside the clubhouse, 2 reporters in a camera truck were already there. Inside, the board table looked smaller under the glare of overhead lights. Karen sat rigid, hair pulled tight, a folder clutched in both hands. Greg avoided my eyes. Trudy sat near the back again, her presence quiet but steady. Karen started the meeting with a tremor in her voice. "We are addressing recent misrepresentations regarding the community's infrastructure," she said. I waited. She continued. Mr. Ellison's so-called inspection was unauthorized. Not unauthorized, interrupted the county compliance officer standing beside the podium, my neutral authority for the day. Inspection was conducted under delegated easement rights, duly recorded. Findings are valid. The room murmured. Cameras clicked. That was visual beat number 2, the officer's badge glinting under fluorescent light, while Karen's expression collapsed one blink at a time. Greg spoke up next. "Our insurer notified us that coverage is suspended until we address the report. We need a plan." Karen hissed. "He's the reason we're losing everything." I stood. "No, mismanagement is. You fine me for a mailbox while ignoring a retention pond leaking into county property. That's not governance, that's negligence." The officer cleared his throat. "The county will issue corrective orders within 10 days. If unresolved, fines accrue at $500 per day." Karen slammed her folder shut. "You think you've won?" "No," I said calmly. "Not yet. Winning isn't the goal. Reform is." She laughed hollow. "You talk like you're saving the neighborhood." "I am," I said, "because if Oak Hollow fails, everyone here pays for it." Reporters scribbled, microphones leaning forward. The energy in the room shifted. The residents who'd been silent were suddenly paying attention. One elderly man in a baseball cap stood. "So what happens now? Do we lose our HOA?" Sheila, sitting near me, answered, "Not necessarily. But your bylaws will have to change. Term limits, transparent audits, proper voting procedures. That's how you rebuild trust." Karen's jaw clenched. Over my dead body. I met her stare. No one's asking for that. Just accountability. Knowledge nugget number 6. Most state HOA acts allow for reformation through membership petition, typically requiring signatures from 51% of homeowners to call a special election for bylaw amendment. Transparency isn't revolution, it's compliance. The meeting adjourned not with vote, but with silence and the sound of rain starting outside again. I walked out to find the reporters waiting. One asked, "Mr. Ellison, do you plan to run for the new board?" I shook my head. "No, I just want to live in peace and see rules applied the same to everyone." That clip aired that night. By morning, it had 500,000 views across social feeds. Captioned, "HOA Karen meets her match." I didn't read the comments, but Marcus did, laughing. "Half the internet wants you to start a consulting firm." I told him maybe later. First, I wanted the cleanup finished. Within a week, Greg resigned. The treasurer followed. The insurer sent formal notice of non-renewal unless new governance measures were implemented. Residents started stopping by my fence, some to thank me, some to apologize. Trudy said she hadn't seen neighbors talk to each other this much in years. And then the county sent notice that Oak Hollow would face administrative fines unless the board restructured by September 1st. That deadline was a hammer. Karen cornered me one evening while I was loading lumber into the truck. "You could end this," she said. "How?" "Withdraw the inspection. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." "Was it?" Her voice cracked. "You don't understand, this community was my legacy." I paused. Then fix it. Make it something you can be proud of. She turned away, shoulders rigid, walking back to her car under the pink smear of sunset. For the first time, I didn't feel anger, just a heavy exhaustion that comes after a storm. The next week, a petition circulated. Trudy spearheaded it with Marcus's help. Within 5 days, over 60% of residents had signed. The special reform election was scheduled. And if you were in my shoes, would you have pushed for reform or let the HOA collapse entirely? Is redemption worth more than revenge when the damage is done? Drop a comment. I want to know how you'd write the ending if it were yours. The reform election took place on August 28th, in the same fluorescent-lit clubhouse that had once echoed with threats. This time the chairs were full, neighbors who'd never shown up before, couples with toddlers, retirees with folded papers in their hands. The air felt different, less fear, more curiosity. I sat in the back, hands still, binder closed. It had done its job. Karen entered last, looking smaller without the entourage. She walked straight to the front row and sat silently. When the county liaison called the meeting to order, no one interrupted. They read the petition aloud. Term limits for officers, mandatory public audits, annual open record reviews, and a rollback of excessive fines. Each motion passed by overwhelming voice vote. The sound of it, dozens of ordinary people saying "aye" in unison, was the cleanest music I'd heard in months. Afterward, Karen approached me. Her voice was softer. I never thought it could fall apart like this. It didn't fall apart, I said. It fell back into place. She nodded, eyes tired. You could have ruined me. I didn't need to, I said. You did it by ignoring your own rules. Reversal number 2 wasn't about punishment. It was about rebuilding. I offered the board a deal. I would withdraw my civil claim if they filed a reform charter publicly within 10 days and created an independent ethics committee with resident oversight. Sheila drew up the memorandum. They signed it that evening under county witness. Reform in ink. Visual beat number 3. The ink-stamped deed of reform hitting the podium. My signature beside theirs. The echo of rubber meeting wood. For the first time, I left that building without a knot in my stomach. The next morning, the county posted a bulletin. Oak Hollow HOA implements transparency charter after citizen complaint. It felt surreal seeing my own fight summarized in 12 bureaucratic words. A week later, the pond maintenance crew showed up under new management, and kids rode bikes past my gate again. Trudy organized a community day. Free lemonade, no speeches, just people showing up. Marcus brought a small speaker and played old blues tracks while we fixed fence posts together. Then came the news blurbs. HOA president resigns following county audit. New oversight committee formed. Local engineers' complaint sparked reform across 3 communities. In the quiet of September evenings, I'd sit on the porch watching the sun fall across the reclaimed pine rails I'd once sanded in anger. The smell of varnish had long faded, replaced by cedar and rain. Baxter would rest his head on my boot while crickets droned beyond the fields. Peace didn't come as triumph. It came as quiet proof that boundaries can be redrawn the right way. Before closing this chapter, I mailed one final document, a copy of the reform memorandum to the county records office, not out of spite, but preservation. If anyone ever tries to undo it, the paper will still exist, ink permanent under glass. If you believe I fought the right way and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend, the one fighting their own HOA or any system that forgot who it's supposed to serve. Subscribe so future stories reach you first, and share this one so others see that law, when used cleanly, still works. It's on us to keep that light steady. Later that fall, I set up a small scholarship through my company, the Ellison Integrity Grant, to help students studying urban policy and community planning. The first recipient was Trudy's granddaughter, Emma. She wrote me a thank you note that ended with one line I still keep pinned above my desk. Real order isn't control. It's fairness everyone agrees to. What changed after? Karen took a consulting role outside the county. Greg moved to Oklahoma. The HOA hired a compliance manager with a background in mediation. The pond was dredged, the fine system rewritten, and for the first time, the community newsletter featured my farmhouse on the cover, not as a violation, but as a reminder. And when I switch on my porch light at night, it glints against a bronze plaque I installed quietly by the fence post. Boundaries exist to protect, not to divide. Then I close the binder for good, label it case closed, Oak Hollow, and slide it onto the shelf beside my father's old drafting pen. Because some fights you finish once, and the rest you finish by teaching others how not to start them.